Here's what's cooking on today's Sports Stove podcast. We're going to talk Lefty goes to LIV or LIV or whatever you want to call it, the golf tour. Phil Mickelson takes off for a new tour. The NCAA baseball playoffs tournament going on. We'll talk about that. The NFL, new deals, guys not showing up for camps, and a lifer in Green Bay. We're also going to talk Major League Baseball with Belly Up's Dan Damico. That and more. That's what's cooking on today's Sports Stove podcast.
From Belly Up Sports and the Belly Up Podcast Network, you're listening to the Sports Stove podcast with your host, Vince Stover.
Hey, good looking, what you got cooking? How's about cooking something up to me?
Hello and welcome to an all-new Sports Stove podcast presented by In the Clutch, officially licensed apparel for Major League Baseball, NHL, Major League Baseball Players Association, and much more. Go to intheclutch.com. Use the code SPORTSSTOVE. You're going to get 10% off your first purchase. Welcome into the new program. Joining me as he normally does is my dad, Dale Stover. How you doing, Dad?
Doing good. Glad to be here.
Yes, I'm glad to be here as well. Sorry, trying to get out the message that we're live on YouTube right now, so people can tune in if they would like to. And, of course, we'll have the audio available afterwards, and we'll be on Belly Up TV tomorrow morning, 7 a.m., Wednesday morning, 7 a.m. and 2 p.m. as well. All right, Dad, we got a full load of things to talk about. In about 20 minutes, we'll be joined by Dan Damico. He's the baseball head at bellyupsports.com, and he is oftentimes joins on our fantasy baseball show that I co-host, and we're going to talk Phillies with him. He's a big Phillies fan. We're going to talk other Major League Baseball things as well, so he'll join us here in about 20 minutes. Let's go ahead and get to the golf stuff. We've talked about this LIV tour a couple different times on the episodes in the past, but it officially was announced that Phil Mickelson will join the tour, and he's getting $50 million a year just to play, and then he can also win stuff on top of that. We know Dustin Johnson got a bunch of money as well, and so basically what we're learning, Dad, is this LIV tour is making sure guys get paid. They're going to get paid up front, and if they win things as well, they're going to be on YouTube, so people can watch on YouTube this weekend for the first tournament over in England, London, I believe.
Yes.
Are you any more interested now that Phil Mickelson's in than you were before, or are you at the same amount of interest or even less interested now?
Probably about the same amount of interest. Like I said, I would like to, pay attention to see how it goes and exactly, the formats. And how they do, but they've got good players, and they obviously, are attracting people, and I don't think that's a surprise. The PGA is going to have to react to it. So,
yeah, well, they don't have to react at the moment because everybody's just resigning from the tour that is joining over. I think 14 players resigned from the PGA Tour to head over to LIV. Now, there is some question marks around the majors. The guys who have exemptions for the majors, will they still be allowed to play in those majors in the PGA? Do you think they should be allowed to play in the majors, or do you think that they have severed their ties?
No, I think they should. And I think, didn't I see something today where the U.S. Open, I guess they all maybe have different rules and guidelines, but they said everyone is welcome to come play there if they qualified for it. And that even included Johnson, it sounded like.
So can the U.S. Open or anybody else, can they overrule the PGA on that? Who has the ultimate authority in that? Do you know?
I think it depends on the tournaments a little bit, and apparently the U.S. Open has their own governing body. From what I've read just a little bit, I think each major has its own rules and qualifications of who qualifies for it. And apparently the U.S. Open has a set of guidelines, and they said anyone they didn't feel like with it being the U.S. Open it wouldn't be the right thing to restrict people from doing it, because they were playing in other events, and so that everyone was welcome to that.
All right, so I'm going to read it from the Associated Press. The USGA made the decision that the U.S. Open is available to Phil Mickelson and Dustin Johnson and other players who qualify for the event as well. So, and both of them say they're planning on playing in it as well. So all that going on, USGA, and I quote, says, regarding players who may choose to play in London this week, we simply asked ourselves this question. Should a player who had earned his way into the 2022 U.S. Open via our published field criteria be pulled out of the field as a result of his decision to play in another event? We ultimately decided that they should not, which is what you just paraphrased for us a minute ago. And so there you go. U.S. Open is making that decision. USGA is the ultimate decider, at least in that tournament there as well. So you're right. Guys coming through and playing. I'm telling you, Dad, I'm more interested. Maybe not just because of Phil Mickelson, but just the fact that it's available. I like Dan Patrick. I like listening to Dan Patrick. But today he was making the argument that nobody will be able to find it on YouTube. I mean, Dad, do you know how to find something on YouTube?
I think I could. I don't watch a lot on YouTube, but yeah, I believe I could.
Yeah, I mean, it's not that difficult. He said, well, people won't be able to get on their TVs. I have YouTube on my TV. Anybody that has a smart TV has YouTube on their TV or can get it. So I think it's going to be actually incredibly easy to find. There's going to be links posted to it on Facebook and Twitter, I'm sure, and Instagram and other places. So I think it's actually going to be very easy to see and find if people want to watch it. And I think they'll have a great viewership here for this first event for them. And I mean, the guys that got Dustin Johnson, he's a winner. Phil Mickelson's entertaining. They got guys that I think can draw some people even to live events when they're in areas where people can get to them as well. So I'm intrigued by it. I continue to kind of lean more and more interested in the LIV Tour. And I definitely will be tuning in this weekend to see what it looks like, to see how it goes. Dad, I'm not sure if you saw this or not. They're doing a shotgun start. So everybody starts at the same time. And then they all end at the same time because everybody's playing at the same moment. So they're not just staggering times and stuff like that. So it's going to go faster to some degree than other tournaments have. It seems like there's going to be a lot more action, a lot more things happening. And then you got the team aspect of it, the individual aspect of it too. To me, it sounded more and more interesting. And the only thing that's negative towards it right now is the fact that Saudi's involved with it, right? I mean, they're horrible people, but the event should be, I think, quite entertaining.
Yes, I think so. And I think, talking about some of those things, everybody playing all at once, I think that, like I said, does create, I think that'll be interesting to watch. And of course, if it's a team thing, then you'll have scores changing all the time. So, I'm sure they're going to experiment a little with a few things, but it sounds like it could be more interesting, at least to the casual fan, for sure.
Great point. Yeah, casual fans or people who don't normally watch golf, if it gets pulled up, it might grab their interest a little bit more than an average PGA Tour event. Because really, when the PGA's on, unless it's somebody you're probably not sticking around too long. If it's a course that's historic, maybe you do. I like to tune in to like the Masters, the U.S. Open. I love the Ryder Cup. I love Phoenix. When they play in Phoenix, I think that's a really fun event. The crowd's a little bit more rambunctious there. And maybe if they're playing like in Ireland or Wisconsin, they got a beautiful course up there in Wisconsin when they play too. So, yeah, I think this might grab interest a little bit more as well. Dad, the NBA playoffs, no game since our last show. The next game will happen after our next show, or right before, I guess, our next show. Your Boston Celtics are now tied 1-1. And are you scared?
No, I think we're still looking at the Celtics in 7. I think, again, we're back in Boston now, and at least got to win one there. It'd be great to win both of them, but I think it's going to be a good series, and I don't think Golden State's going to run away with it.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting to see. There's, a little bit now more chippiness going on. Draymond Green made some news and his actions, and there's definitely not a love necessarily between these two teams right now, so that should make it more fun as well. I just hope the games are close. I don't like watching these blowouts in the finals. I want to see a close game, something that can come down to a historic shot kind of a deal. And so I want to see closer games. We have not seen too many close games in these playoffs. A lot of blowouts, even though it goes back and forth between which team is blowing out whom. I still want to see closer games in the playoffs. I'm still sticking with the Warriors, maybe not in 5, like I originally said, but I'll stick with the Warriors for now as well in the NBA Finals. Other postseason things going on is the NCAA baseball and softball tournaments. And I have not had a chance to watch any. I've seen lots of highlights and things like that. But I know we've talked about before that it really is a great event watching the college playoffs. And I know you've been paying some attention to it as well. So I'm going to give you the floor here to talk about the NCAA baseball tournament.
Yeah, baseball tournament, of course, they'll start on Friday with the super regionals. So you got 16 teams left now. It's been really good baseball, some really good performances going on there. It's interesting. You have the top 5 ranked teams are still in it. You have 11 of the 16 that are in it were ranked in the top 14. So you have the better teams there. Conference-wise, the SEC has 5 teams in it. They could have had one in each super regional, actually. But on Monday, you had LSU, Vanderbilt, and Florida all lost. So, but there are 5 SEC teams in. The ACC, they have 3, unless you count Notre Dame, then there's 4, and I'm not sure if they played in the ACC in baseball or not this year. You got the Pac-12 with 2, the Big 12 with 2, and then 4 other teams there. There's some smaller schools in it, which there always is. Southern Miss is in it. And, there, I think there was, there was 11 or 12 regional hosts that won and went in. There were 5, I think, that were not. So it's been good. There's always a lot of excitement, and now you get to the super regional. 2 out of 3 should be some really good baseball teams. Like I said, a couple smaller schools or schools, excuse me, you don't expect, like Connecticut and things like that. So, but no, it's been a really good tournament, and excuse me, been following it with Tennessee because they're the number 1 ranked team, and they've looked good. They've had some close games, but boy, they really turned it on at the end and did the other night to wrap that up. So, yeah, I think it's great baseball to watch, and should be good, and they should have 8 really good teams end up going to Omaha.
Have you watched any of the softball games?
I have. I've watched quite a bit of those, and they're down to the championship now with Oklahoma and Texas. Texas is one of the first non-ranked teams that's in the championship, at least in a long time, maybe ever. I'm not sure how I heard that there. But Oklahoma, of course, excuse me, is the defending champion, and they're quite the team to watch. Texas did beat them once during the year, but did not beat them in the tournament, getting to the finals here. So Oklahoma is quite a team. They've got a girl that I guess is maybe the greatest home run hitter in college softball history, and she is really interesting to watch. Oklahoma, just a very confident team. They played, their last game their last 2 games were against UCLA. UCLA won like 7-3 to force the last game. A little sidelight there, Tom Brady's niece plays for UCLA and hit 2 home runs. Yeah. And so you thought, wow, UCLA won 7-3. This last game may really be something. And it was something, but it was 15-0 Oklahoma. And they were just all over them. And they're really good. Of course, a real rivalry with Texas. So I think that starts Wednesday for the championship there with the girls softball. And I think, you know, if you like sports, watching college sports is always good. And I think it's always refreshing watching girls' college sports and championships. You know, it's very intense. They're very talented. The games, you know, show incredible skill, but it's always interesting when they show the dugouts. These are girls. They're 18, 19, 20-year-old girls. They're giggling. They're laughing. They're cheering. They're wearing crazy hats. They're crying in some cases, but they're girls. And that's kind of refreshing to see that. You know, very serious on the field, very, very talented, but it's just kind of refreshing. It reminds you, you know, sports can be fun, and they have fun with it. And I think that's a good thing to watch college sports. And I think any girl sport, you see that more. Even basketball, you see that a lot.
Yeah, well, winning is fun, as I tell my guys on my basketball team. So if you want to have fun, let's win some games and have all the fun you want. But Oklahoma only lost 3 games all season long, 57-3 here and heading into the championship, like you said, Wednesday night against Texas. Texas 47-20-1 to close out the season. They took out Oklahoma State in their what is that, semifinal, I guess. And so they took care of them. Oklahoma State was ranked 7th in the country. So Texas taking out another Big 12 opponent, now heading in to the championship game Wednesday evening. All right. Let's see here. We got about 5 minutes, I think, before Dan Damico joins us. So I'm not sure I want to get too much into the NFL stuff just yet. We'll save that for after Dan is on with us. So I want to make quick comments on the Tampa Bay Rays. Earlier this week, TMZ reported that some of the Texas Rays players opted out of wearing the Pride logo and due to religious things. I've seen a lot of different responses to it. Actually, a lot of it has been positive, which really surprised me. But a couple things I want to add real quick. They had a conversation, the Rays said, and it sparked conversation, but not angry conversation. And the one thing that I noted was it's refreshing to see adults act like adults. And it was great to see them be able to have a conversation, figure out a solution for what they were going to do, and then go out and do it. And without it causing a big stir outside of, you know, getting stirred up in the media and things like that. I was impressed by it, and I didn't expect it coming from a professional sports league, professional sports team in today's day and age. But I was proud of the way it was handled, and it really, for me, just very refreshing that adults can have a conversation, work out a situation, and get to it. Maybe we'll discuss it more as we go on with the show, but that's just my quick thoughts on it there. We're going to take a quick break. When we come back, we're going to be joined by Belly Up Sports baseball director Dan Damico, and Phillies fan, by the way. We won't rock them too hard for that. We're going to take a quick break, and when we come back, we'll be joined by Dan Damico. InTheClutch.com, the newest sponsors of the Sports Stove podcast, and we are excited to partner with InTheClutch.com. They have officially licensed apparel and accessories for your favorite sports teams and athletes. Use code SPORTSSTOVE and get 10% off your first purchase. You can find shirts like I Still Own You, Green Bay Packers. Are we talking about practice? All kinds of great shirts in baseball, football, hockey, and basketball. Officially licensed apparel from InTheClutch.com. Again, use the code SPORTSSTOVE to get 10% off your purchase. Welcome back into the Sports Stove podcast presented by InTheClutch.com. Again, use code SportsStove to get 10% off your purchase. Joining us now for the first time on the Sports Stove, I believe, is the one and only Dan Damico. Dan, how you doing?
I'm doing fantastic. How you guys doing?
Doing good as well. Good to have you on. Of course, I mentioned earlier in the show you jump on the fantasy baseball show often. You are the baseball head of Belly Up Sports and cover Philadelphia Phillies and other things as well. But the real reason I was originally scheduled you was to talk you into trading me Willie Adames in our fantasy league. But we already got that taken care of, so we don't have to talk about that anymore.
Yes, we did, and it's causing my roster a lot of mayhem right now. I can't activate anyone from the IL. Tyler O'Neill came off the IL today, tried to activate him. ESPN wouldn't let me. So if he hits a couple home runs today, you catch a break because we're actually playing each other this week.
Yes. Yes, a wonderful thing. I thought it was a fair trade all the way around, though. I think we both got some good stuff out of it, but nobody cares about our fantasy team. So let's talk some real baseball. Let's start with your Phillies. They made a change at manager Joe Girardi out, and since then they are on a 4-game win streak. Is it all the manager? Is it all who they're playing? Is it all just pure luck? How has the team supposedly turned it around so far?
Well, playing the Angels certainly helped, and if we'd said that 3 weeks ago, you would have thought we were crazy. But yeah. I mean, the Angels just fired their manager today, so that's about how the Angels' season has gone. So definitely the Angels a little bit, but everyone looks more relaxed now that Rob Thompson's the manager. I didn't know much about him. I still don't know much about him. I don't think I've ever heard him say a word. I didn't get a chance to catch his press conference, but everything that's said about him, he's a people guy. He's kind of an old school baseball guy, and he's trotted out basically the same lineup for the 4 games he's been in charge. It's going to be basically the same tonight. Game starts in about 10 minutes here, and I think it's just allowed everyone to relax now that Girardi's out. Even Girardi was apparently relieved by the end of his conversation with Dave Dombrowski when he was getting fired. He was relieved. His stress fell off his back. So it wasn't a great situation, and they've gotten a couple wins out of it. We'll see with a good Brewers team that's lost 3 straight, just got swept. So we'll see how it goes, if the Phillies can keep it going or if they run into a good team and we all have to come back to reality.
Yeah, he is the new manager. He was with Girardi in New York for a little bit. He was with Kapler actually in Philly, and then Girardi kept him when he came in as well. So, and I guess he took over, from what I read, he took over the day-to-day operations of the team while Kapler was still there as manager. They gave him the decisions for the day, and supposedly it went okay, I guess, from there. But an interesting thing, I was looking, though, the National League East, which has been pretty horrendous this year, 4 of the 5 teams are currently on win streaks. Nationals on a 3-game win streak, Phillies on a 4, Atlanta on a 5, and the Mets on a 3-game win streak right now. So are things going to turn around as a whole for the East, or are we going to see the Mets run away with it?
Well, it could turn around for the Mets and for the Braves and Phillies, and they'd still get nowhere near the Mets, the way the Mets are playing right now. But there's talent in the NL East. The Mets are obviously one of the best teams in baseball right now. The Braves just won a World Series, have Ronald Acuna Jr. The Phillies, while they've been struggling, have a really talented lineup, have really talented players up and down the roster. And the Marlins are one of the best. I know they're not on a winning streak, but they've got good young talent. They've got 2 really good pitchers right now in Sandy Alcantara and Pablo Lopez. The lineup is pretty average, but they've got enough to where they're intriguing to watch at the very least. And the Nationals have Juan Soto, who, despite his low batting average right now, could probably win you 5 baseball games just by himself in a row. And so the NL East has the talent, but a lot of the teams have been pretty disappointing, probably chief among them the Phillies.
This isn't the first year for disappointment for the Phillies, which is part of why Girardi is gone. I asked this to Graham. We had Graham Wallace on earlier this week, I guess. What is today? Tuesday? Yeah, I think we had him on the Monday episode. And I asked him about Juan Soto because he's a great player on a bad team. And there's a lot that the Nationals are going to have to do to get a good team. So do you think Soto stays in Washington, or do you think he eventually gets moved on to somewhere else?
I think for now you have to keep him. There's really no package that could give you any sort of fair value for him. I know in the trade of Trey Turner and Max Scherzer, they got some decent players that are on their team now, but that's probably part of the problem. They're on the team now and they're not doing very well. Keibert Ruiz has been fine. Josiah Gray has not. He's been pretty poor. And Juan Soto is so far from free agency. You have to at least give it a try, let some of these guys develop some more around him. And then maybe if you're, a year and a half away from Juan and Soto reaching free agency, or maybe even just the 2 months before he goes to free agency, then if you're not good by then you pull the trigger on the trade and go into really a full-scale rebuild. Because with one of the best players in the league, you can't really rebuild because you don't keep really good players if you rebuild when they're on the team. So for right now, it certainly looks like Juan Soto won't get traded, but even if they're fielding calls, the Nationals, the asking price has got to be astronomical. Like it would almost seem silly to even start talking about what a team like the Dodgers, just for example, would have to trade to get Juan Soto, because it would have to start with their top 3 prospects and probably Gavin Lux. And I don't even think the Nationals would say yes to that.
Yeah, maybe they get Bellinger, but that's not a huge get at the moment.
That's not much better.
Not much better. Which Nationals player goes to the All-Star game? Is it Soto? He's not probably the most deserving this season, but his name kind of almost locks him in, doesn't it?
Yeah, because the fans account for so much of the vote for the All-Star game, it's almost definitely going to be Juan Soto, whether he deserves it or not. And it should probably be Josh Bell. He's having a pretty good year, but first base in the National League is really good this year. So much so they're probably going to have to sneak CJ Cronin into like a backup DH role behind Bryce Harper to make sure all the first basemen get in the National League. They've got Pete Alonso, Paul Goldschmidt, Freddie Freeman. Games in LA. How are you going to keep Freddie Freeman on the All-Star game if he's playing at home? And CJ Cronin, I'm probably forgetting someone.
Probably. So I'm trying to think. Oh, you didn't say Rowdy Tellez, but I'll forgive you. That's okay.
Yeah. There might be a couple more Brewers that are a little more deserving than Rowdy Tellez. But it certainly looks right now that it's going to be Juan Soto, and rightfully so. He's the All-Star game isn't competitive. It's for the fans. It's a spectacle. And how do you have a spectacle of baseball without Juan Soto there?
That's fair. You mentioned it earlier. Joe Madden gets fired from the Angels. That's the second manager so far this season being fired. How many more managers get the can before the end of the season?
Well, this is honest. This is the most. I don't remember baseball managers getting fired this early in the season at all recently. And to have 2 in the same week is very surprising. I'm sure if the White Sox continue to struggle, Tony La Russa will get fired. You mentioned it on the Fantasy Up baseball show on Sunday, and I mentioned it too. He just doesn't fit that team. The team is young. It's got a lot of international players on it, and they have a lot of fun. And remember, he's basically smashed your Mercedes dreams when he swung with a position player pitching and hit a home run. And he basically said that was the wrong thing to do. And I'm pretty sure Yerby Mercedes is still in the minor leagues.
Yeah.
So he just doesn't fit what the White Sox were building. And I don't know if it's the same effect that Joe Girardi seemed to have on the Phillies, where he just kind of it was just a black cloud over everyone. And if Tony La Russa goes, everyone starts having fun again. Everyone starts smiling again. They win 10 games in a row. But Tony La Russa, maybe Scott Servais, the Mariners have been playing better recently, but have still disappointed thus far. They're probably right now the AL version of the Phillies. As much as the Angels have been described as the AL version of the Phillies for probably the last 5 years, or at least the last 3 since the Phillies have added Harper, 2 teams with superstar talents that can't make the playoffs. The Mariners are probably on that fence if they don't turn it around and get back into the playoff push. But I think La Russa is chief among the guys on the hot seat right now, especially if they fall farther behind the Twins, the AL Central.
Yeah, and you mentioned not used to seeing these managers go this early in the season, but the ones that have been fired so far have been around for a long time. Not necessarily at the club that they just got fired from, but I mean, Girardi's managed now. He's been around for a while in that role, and then Madden, same thing. He's been around for a long time. If La Russa goes too, maybe you could file an ageism suit. There's your Michael Scott reference for you there. But something going on like that. Dad, any questions for Dan?
No, like I said, one thing, I do have a friend that's a big Phillies fan. He's from Jersey, and every year before fantasy draft, I always ask him for advice. And this year, of course, he was optimistic that the Phillies were going to be pretty good. But one of the guys he recommended was a prospect who they had traded, and I got him, and it's been a pretty good pickup for me, and that was Crawford from Seattle, I believe it is. JP Crawford.
Yeah.
Huh?
Yeah.
And,
yes, that's him.
And he's been very good. Did that surprise you any that he's having a good career somewhere else?
But he wasn't any good for the Phillies, which was unfortunate. And we've now learned that the Phillies player development system is just a complete mess. And it seemed like he needed to get out of Philly to kickstart his career. He was really the only prospect other than Aaron Nola and Rhys Hoskins. He was the next guy that came up, and for a long time, he was the only guy that Phillies fans could really gravitate towards as like, this could be the next Jimmy Rollins. This could be the next great shortstop in Philadelphia. It never happened for him here, and I don't think I don't hold any ill will towards JP Crawford. It just didn't work. It happens. And I'm glad to see that he's doing well in Seattle. He's a likable guy, and I'm glad he's doing well somewhere else. But the extent that he's having success, especially the success he had in April, that is surprising to me. I didn't think he had, a month like that in him, let alone a full season of it if he keeps it up.
Dad, if you could pick between one of two players in fantasy baseball, would you take Rhys Hoskins or Cody Bellinger?
Hoskins. Yeah, I've got Hoskins, and I would take him.
I don't know if you remember, Dan's the one that drafted Hoskins, and then we had to reset things because of the ESPN glitch, and then you took him, stole him from Dan Damico. Dan's still a little bitter over that. Dan, one more question for you. Dallas Keuchel. It wasn't that long ago. He was a very solid Major League Baseball pitcher. And then just last week, he gets dropped, and now he's signed on somewhere with a minor league deal. What happened to Dallas Keuchel? I mean, it seems like it was, 2 years ago? I feel like he was one of the dominant guys, maybe in Houston. Was he in Houston for their World Series? I don't remember. But I just remember Keuchel being good, and then all of a sudden he was not good. What's going on with him?
Well, it happens. We've seen it happen with guys. Happened to Jake Arrieta when he came to the Phillies. It's actually very similar. They both signed 3-year deals with new teams after leaving the team they won a Cy Young with, and they both they kind of lost it. And they're both guys they're sinker ball guys. They work on the edges. They rely on weak contact. And if the command starts to go, they start to get hit really hard. So it just looks like he kind of went down the path of Jake Arrieta, where the command goes, and the White Sox were man enough to straight up cut him. The Phillies at least let Jake Arrieta get hurt and run out his contract. But it happens all the time, unfortunately. Guys lose the sharp break on the sinker or the slider, the cutter, whatever it is, and that seems to be what's happened with Dallas Keuchel. Maybe he can catch on somewhere and find it, maybe for a month, give a team a couple good starts, but it certainly looks like he'll be he's made his last meaningful start in the MLB.
We are about a third of the way, I think, through the Major League Baseball season. If you had to pick World Series, who's going to meet in the World Series, who would you pick right now?
Well, it would be too easy to pick, Yankees, Dodgers, or Yankees, Mets. But it certainly seems like people are going to have trouble dethroning the Yankees as the best team in the American League this season. And I've got my roommate's a Yankees fan, so as much as it hurts me to say that, it looks like they're gonna get over the top this year. But I'll go Yankees. I don't want to say the Mets because that hurts, and I know what they're capable of doing in late in the season. So I'll go Yankees, Dodgers. As boring as it is, they're the best two teams. They look like the best two teams. Maybe the Padres, when Tatis comes back, really catch fire. Maybe I don't know. Maybe the Astros can find it again, but it certainly looks like the Yankees and the Dodgers or the Mets will be meeting in the World Series. As much as I don't want to see it.
The Mets are still down DeGrom, Scherzer right now, and they're still having a pretty fair amount of success. It's hard to believe if they're coming back fully healthy. That's a really, really tough rotation, but LA's got a good rotation as well. San Diego has an okay rotation as well. So definitely going to be a fun rest of the season. Dan, I sure appreciate you coming on. Let the people know where they can find you at and any of the other stuff that you do.
You can find me on Twitter at Damico14. I'm sure in probably about 10 minutes when Ranger Suarez is giving up a home run or two, I'll be tweeting bad things about my appearance on this show and how I should have never come on. But you can catch me there. I tweet a lot about the Phillies, a lot about Pitt, but they're out of season now. Pitt baseball, unfortunately, didn't make the NCAA tournament this year after a nice little run to the ACC semifinal in the tournament. You also follow Belly Up Baseball on Twitter. We do a lot of good stuff over there. We've got more writers coming in, and really hope you can join us over there.
Now, you say Pitt. Are you a all-around Pitt guy, like Pitt football also?
Well, University of Pittsburgh football. Yeah. I'm a Philly guy through and through, but yes, University of Pittsburgh football. That's they're in for an interesting season. They've had a very interesting summer. They've been at the front of transfer talks with Jordan Addison leaving. Mm-hmm. So that was a great weekend. I had the Eagles passing on players I wanted in the draft and Jordan Addison leaving Pitt all within like an hour.
Yeah.
So that was a fun time in May to be really stressed about football.
Yeah. Well, since we got you, if you don't mind, a couple football questions for you. Kenny Pickett. You saw him a lot there at college. What is he going to start over Mitch Trubisky, you think?
Mitch Trubisky's a solid NFL quarterback, and I think I might be complimenting him too much. Kenny Pickett is the future of the Steelers. He's also probably the most pro-ready of the quarterbacks that came out this year. He should start, even if he loses a couple games early. He's been playing forever. He's basically a 4-year starter at Pitt. And they ran a relatively pro-style offense with Mark Whipple. He was an NFL guy. He coached Ben Roethlisberger. So Kenny Pickett should start. Whether he is the starter at the beginning of the year remains to be seen. But if I'm a Steelers fan, if I'm watching the Steelers want them to win, I want to see Kenny Pickett run the offense week one. End of story.
Okay. Then Philly question for you. One of the conversations me and Dad have a lot on this show, we talk a lot about the Eagles for some odd reason. But Jalen Hurts, I like Jalen Hurts. I don't know that I trust Jalen Hurts to be an NFL quarterback, starting NFL quarterback, to lead me to the promised land. But the Eagles, they add A.J. Brown through the trade there in the draft and things like that. Is Jalen Hurts going to carry Philadelphia, or are they going to be drafting a quarterback next year?
Well, this is certainly the year we're going to see. I was on the pro Carson Wentz train. I'll admit that I was on the keep Carson Wentz train until the day he got traded. But this is certainly Jalen Hurts' year to put up, or you're getting kicked to the curb with the amount of talent in the draft next year at quarterback. This is his year, and with A.J. Brown, like you said, with Devontae Smith, with a really good offensive line that returned Jason Kelce, he's got the tools to run the offense. And I like him. And he doesn't need to be, a top 10 quarterback. If he's just in that, 10 to 12 range, 12 to 15 range, somewhere in there where he's not losing games, they've got a good enough run game. The defense is certainly improved. So if he can make plays when he needs to, kind of be a Lamar Jackson light, then that should be enough for him to keep his job at least into next year and for the foreseeable future.
All right, very good. I wasn't planning on talking Eagles and Pitt football today, but it came up, so that's great. That's awesome. Dan, I really appreciate you coming on the show, and we'll get you on again sometime down the road as well. But thanks so much for taking some time with us today. Absolutely. Thank you for having me. All right, we'll see you. That's Dan Damico. He's the baseball head of BellyUpSports.com. Make sure you go and check him out there. And like you said, you can follow him on Twitter and see all his rage tweets about Philadelphia sports and everything there as well. All right, Dad, we're going to get into some NFL conversation, but first I want to let people know about Elementor. Elementor is a great tool to help you prepare your website to be top notch everywhere you look. You need a good website. In today's day and time, without a good website, your business is really in trouble. So get Elementor, the ultimate WordPress website builder. With live drag and drop editor, you can build and customize every part of your website with zero coding required. Elementor is your all-inclusive solution for your website. Create, manage, and host your website through Elementor. Use the exclusive Sports Stove link in the episode notes on YouTube or any podcast platform, and you can get more information on Elementor's packages that can help you have the best website possible. Again, that link is available in the YouTube description or podcast notes on any podcast platform where you listen to the Sports Stove podcast. All right, Dad, a couple NFL thoughts. Aaron Donald, he still had 3 years left on his contract, but he said, I'm going to retire if I don't get a new deal. So they give him a new deal, 3 years, $95 million, the highest paid non-quarterback in the NFL. I think I know the answer to this, but is Aaron Donald worth 3 years, $95 million?
I mean, he is by far one of the more dominant defensive players that there is. Whether anybody's worth that much, but in on this market and everything, that's not surprising. And he is by far one of the dominant defensive players, if not the most dominant. So yeah, it'd be interesting to see. The Rams, have to have a lot of money tied up in people right now. So it'll be interesting to see how it works in the next couple of years.
Yeah, they make it work. They keep signing these big contracts, Matt Stafford, Jalen Ramsey, now Aaron Donald. But they make it happen. They make it work. They got Cooper Kupp to sign still as well. Let's see here. Speaking of contracts, Aaron Rodgers says today that he will finish his career as a Green Bay Packer, which is music to my ears, to the sense that we don't have to hopefully listen to the nonsense we had to listen to the last year during the draft and all throughout the season and off season. He says, I'm here. I'm finished my career here. You made light of the fact, or mention of the fact, that he, basically opened the door to a Super Bowl win, and he might walk out at the end of this year and retire there as well. Are you happy to hear, and do you believe Aaron Rodgers when he says he'll finish his career Packer?
Yes, I believe him, and yes, I'm happy about it. Like I said, one, hopefully we'll keep the drama down, at least the interior drama, no doubt about that, inside the team. Nationally, it may not change anything because you still got all these national guys who have their inside sources who tell you absolutely, that he's going to leave, and that hasn't happened yet, but I'm sure we'll keep hearing that from there. But no, I think Rodgers is really tied into the situation. I think he's going to take it as a real challenge to win with these young wide receivers, and I think he believes in Matt LaFleur's system, and I think LaFleur can design an offense that'll be effective. I think they could have a dominant offensive line, and if they do, then they can kind of do what they want to do. Special teams should be a lot better. And, when you look at some of the disappointing games they've had in the playoffs, special teams were responsible for at least 3 of them. So that could make a difference right there. And their defense looks like they're really stacked.
You go back to 2014 or 2013, whenever it happened with the Seahawks and the horrible onside debacle. And that wasn't the only reason they lost that game, but that was the closing reason pretty much why they lost that game. The defense has been an issue at times as well, although they have gotten better. Special teams has just been a absolute thorn in our sides now for several years. So, yes, hopefully that gets better. You talk about the height of football excellence in Green Bay. We have to go to the cellar to talk about Chicago and the Bears already cheating this year, getting penalized. A practice, I guess. They had a practice taken away from them because too much contact in a practice. Is that correct?
Yes. Yeah. Too much contact not allowed by the NFLPA last week from there. And, it's very interesting about the Bears. I'm sure a lot of Bear fans would say, hey, that's great. We're rough and we're tough and we're just not going to mess with anybody there. And other people would look at it as being undisciplined. So it's going to be interesting to see. This new regime in Chicago has definitely not impressed me so far.
I said it from the beginning, right? I thought when they hired the coach originally, I said, that's a great hire. But his staff is going to make the difference. And I don't think he hired a good staff. And I know you disagree with me a little bit on that. The offensive coordinator comes down from Green Bay, and Luke Getsy. I just don't think he's ready for that role, for that place and that position, especially they got a great young quarterback in Justin Fields. Boy, if I'm a Bears fan, I'm scared right now. If this was the Lions, Dad, with Dan Campbell, it'd probably all be relatively positive. Too much physical contact in practice would make sense for Dan Campbell. I don't think we would call it undisciplined with him because of his persona. But you're right. The Bears make a big mistake. First-time head coach. Maybe that has a role in it. A lot of the guys on his staff don't have that same experience, associate head coach or head coach experience. So maybe he doesn't have enough voices in there helping him out. I don't know. But at the end of the day, maybe they just wanted a day off, and so they decided to do it on purpose. Who knows? But nonetheless, the Bears get penalized for trying to cheat. Then Jimmy Garoppolo. There's still question marks about the starting quarterback in San Francisco. We assume it's going to be Trey Lance. Many people think Jimmy Garoppolo should still be starting in San Francisco. I am not one of those people. But Garoppolo not only misses the mandatory minicamp, he is excused from the mandatory minicamp. San Francisco says, you don't need to be here. Don't worry about it. You just, you relax. It's okay. From there, San Francisco is a team that has been in the hunt now for several years. They might be a quarterback away. Hopefully they're figuring out the Deebo Samuel situation. He wanted a new contract and different things going on. At one point said he wanted to trade. San Francisco, what's happening down there?
I don't know. They have a lot of talent, but they've had some turmoil. To be interesting with the quarterback. I think you're right. Trey Lance is the way to go. But if he doesn't end up doing well early, then that will throw things a little bit there. So I don't know. That was a little surprising with Garoppolo, the way they handled it. And again, he may get moved before the year starts, so we don't know.
I think they would like him to, but who wants him? We'll talk about that more in our next episode as well. I want to remind people a couple things. You can find us on social media, Twitter and Instagram at Sports Stove. Anywhere you get your podcast, the Sports Stove Podcast. We are doing our recordings live on YouTube, and tonight we're actually live on Facebook as well, but live on YouTube, and then our audio comes out Monday, Wednesday, Thursday, and we are on Belly Up TV Monday, Wednesday, Friday. Same episodes, but nonetheless, that's the way it lays out here as we finish out the summer and different things going on. So let's see here. This episode is airing on Belly Up TV Wednesday morning, 7 a.m. and 2 p.m. And the audio drops in the morning, Wednesday morning, and we're live, of course, right now. Then we're going to do another live episode on YouTube tomorrow night, Wednesday night, around 8:30. We don't know the exact start time on that yet because we got church, you got to get home and all that kind of stuff. But around 8:30, we'll be live on YouTube. Again, that audio will drop Thursday morning and will be on TV Friday. morning there as well. So tomorrow we're going to talk some NFL stuff. We've got someone coming on to talk Carolina Panthers quarterback situation as well. Dad's planning on being back with us also. And so we'll talk about all the latest and greatest news and updates going on in the world as well. So, Dad, since we're going to come back tomorrow, is there anything you need to talk about tonight before we leave?
No, I think we're good, and we'll see everybody tomorrow.
All right, very good. Thank you so much for tuning in to today's Sports Stove podcast. Thank you to Dan Damico for joining us to talk some baseball as well, and some football actually today as well. Thanks for tuning in. Until next time, we'll see you around the sports.